Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Morristown, New Jersey, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York City, Kaustubha. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the Srimad Bhagavatam. The Srimad Bhagavatam is the preeminent book of yoga wisdom where we excavate yogic teachings and make them practical and relevant in contemporary life. How's that for a tagline, Kaustubha Ji?
Not bad at all.
Around with it still.
Are you using your regular mic today? Or?
No, nice. I'm not.
I could tell.
You're like the mic police, I've noticed.
Someone's got to do it.
No, I forgot my mic. I'm down here in
You're
New Jersey with Bhakta Bob Healy.
Gotcha. Okay.
Mic, so I'm just using computer audio. So should I sit closer?
No, I mean, I can hear you. It's just a different tone. That's all.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
So if you're new to the show, welcome. Kaustubha and me have known each other since kid life. And then we became monks around the same time. And then we became yoga teachers, him in New York and me in Los Angeles. And now we got full circle and we lead yoga trainings together all over the place, around the world and in India. And we started our podcast January 1st this year. Mm-hmm. And we're still going strong. Is Bhakta Louie here? Do you want to unlock Bhakta Louie? You got to introduce Bhakta Louie today. I feel like he needs a little airtime. Bhakta Louie is, me and Kaustubha got into Bhakti, strangely enough, because you never know who sort of triggers you on your spiritual path. But we got into Bhakti because there was Bhakti mixed into the punk rock hardcore scene on the Lower East Side where we were hanging out when we were 14 and 15 years old. And in the middle of this crazy chaos, lawless city of New York in the early 80s, there happened to be a few punks into Bhakti, and Bhakta Louie is one of them. Where's Bhakta Louie? Say good morning, Bhakta Louie.
First and foremost, please accept my most humble obeisance, and all glories to Acharya A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada.
Jai. Bhakta Louie sang in a band called Antidote, which had this great picture. It's sort of a gruesome picture of a man with a cow's head cutting off the head of a cow, but the cow had a human face. It was like a picture of the law of karma. Like, you're going to kill, you're going to get killed. And the name of the name of the band was called Antidote, and the name of the 45 RPM, remember those? Yep. It was called Thou Shalt Not Kill. Remember that?
I remember.
It was a great record.
You want to really surprise people. You say, okay, the 45 RPM, right? It's small, like it's a little 7-inch thing, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you tell them, on top of that, there are 8 songs on that.
That's the beautiful thing about
they're short songs.
For all the civilians
the days of the less than 1 minute songs, you know what I mean?
Yeah. But each song spoke loud and clear. Anyway, Bhakta Louie, just wanted to say what's up and good to see you. And,
Daily
Prabhu,
Zoomer.
thank you, man. Thank you.
it's like Johnny Appleseed. You throw those seeds out there. You never know when they're going to land. One landed on me, one landed on Kaustubha, and
I'll tell you what, Prabhu. Little, unbeknownst to us, you know what I mean, to any of us, you know what I mean. All's what we were doing were finding ourselves migrating, kind of like just wandering mindlessly towards this one little park on the Lower East Side that was right across the street from a place that we used to migrate to, like at hours of the nights that we should have been taking rest at.
So right across from this underground, and when I say underground, it means it was illegal. It opened at midnight, went to 5 a.m. Right next to this club, there was the original Tompkins Square Park, which 20 years earlier, 25 years earlier, Prabhupada, who brought bhakti to the Western culture, he sat under a tree with a pair of cartels and just chanted the holy name and gathered a whole bunch of hippies around. It's a magical place.
I mean,
It's become a holy place.
I think, basically, I don't think there's no argument there, is that unbeknownst to us, when Prabhupada was sitting under that tree chanting the Maha Mantra and leading a kirtan, he was just kind of like, spreading the ripples, the early little ripples of this, right? Ripples,
Yeah.
right? And, it led us there, unbeknownst. And I guess, my band was, one of the bands that was considered the first early signs of Krishna consciousness on the hardcore scene.
The first.
So, I guess at that point, I'm fortunate enough to be able to sprinkle a little bhakti into your lives.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Prabhu.
You know what I saw yesterday, and I think you shared it, Louie, was Jesse Malin.
Yeah.
It was like, he's kind of become, he was from that original scene as a little kid too. He had a band called Heart Attack back then. Now he's gone on to be somewhat like of a, well-known musician.
He's like a cult celebrity.
Yeah, it's like a lot of big.
To me, he represents what he's like the Keith Richards of the music of, he kind of grew into that kind of personality a little bit.
Yeah, and now like people like Bruce Springsteen are into him, and like big bands are into him. He's not super popular, but he is kind of, he's definitely expanded way beyond the hardcore scene.
I love the fact that they did that tribute during these times that we're living in. And if you notice, one of the really cool things about that video.
Well, let's say it right now, because we haven't said it, that just like very recent, within the past few days or something like that, he released a video about an old friend of ours who passed away, I guess, a couple years ago.
Yeah.
It was Todd Youth, who was a runaway kid who
also practicing. I met
another
Todd.
one, right?
I met Todd when he was 12 years old. He ran away from home like at 12.
And so he ran away to that scene, played in many bands, became a very talented musician, played with Jesse Malin in one of his bands back then.
He played with Danzig.
He played with so many, yeah. He
played played with like
Glenn Campbell, Motorhead.
Glenn Campbell.
Yeah. He played with Glenn Campbell. In any case, the point was he got into Bhakti-yogi. He also was one of the people that from that scene that got into Bhakti. And so Jesse Malin just released a video, kind of a song that's a tribute to him. But the whole thing's filmed just right in that area and under that tree. And the song even mentions that tree and the holy rivers, because his ashes, I was there when it happened. We brought, Todd's ashes, and he wanted some of the ashes to be left there by that tree, his daughters. And then the rest of his ashes were taken to the Yamuna and the Ganga rivers in India. So anyway, the song mentions that and shows that tree and everything like that. It's pretty cool.
It starts off for me.
Jesse Malin
about it is that it starts off in front of the Led Zeppelin physical graffiti building.
That's right. Yeah, the cover of that physical graffiti record is.
I thought that was pretty cool. And the fact
where the Stones did that video too. It's playing with all those ideas. So Rolling Stones had that "Waiting on a Friend" video.
You know what I mean? All the neighborhoods that we grew up, that kind of like we visited as youths, as mindless youths.
Okay, boys, we're going to take it back to the Bhagavatam, but thank you.
Well, hey, this is all the Bhagavatam, Raghunath.
What is going on here, Cuba? You are chasing squirrels today.
Thank you, Bhakta Louie. It's just, for me, it's to see you here every day. For me, it's something like, it kind of grounds me in a certain way. You know, it's my past and the present. It brings it all together. It's great, you know, that we were friends when we were kids and we're still here connected through the Bhagavatam to today.
Well, I mean, what do you think it does to me? You guys, you know, to wake up and see you guys like keeping this movement alive is just really humbling for me. It really is.
We're all doing it together.
Oh, glories. Oh, glories. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Bhakta Louie. You know, Kaustubha ji, between you and me, you know what I think keeps Bhakta Louie around?
Right.
The guy's super humble.
Very humble.
Super humble. And
it's hard, man. It's hard. Don't forget, I'm still in Maya.
Bhakta Louie, you cannot talk any longer. You are muted.
He's being too humble over there.
What happens is, and I'm sure you can testify to this, you can't stay around the Bhakti movement if you're arrogant. Krishna, the universe, God pushes you away, because to really be humble, you got to get rid of that false ego, and you got to act in a very, very authentic way. And as soon as that ego comes up, Krishna creates like a force field, like you just can't get in any longer. And people like Bhakta Louie, guy's got a good attitude of humility. Appreciate him.
Absolutely.
All right. Anyway, if you're new to the show, welcome. If you want to join our little Zoom party, this Zoom party's fun. We get to look at each other, wave to each other. We know each other by name. It holds people to a type of accountability, seeing everybody. I love seeing people on a regular basis. But you can join us. Costs nothing to join. All you got to do is email Mara at wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com. Wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com. And you can join us here live. This Sunday, do you want to announce our guest today, Krishna?
It's an incredible guest, actually. I mean, her name is Krishna Nandini, and she's a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, going way, way back. But she's a woman, you know, she's exemplary in so many ways. One of these somewhat unsung heroes, you know, people that really imbibe the mood of bhakti and shared it with her family. She's got, I think, like 9 children. She's got, you know, just one of these kind of responsible mothers, and but just always serving. And but you know, after all these years of practicing bhakti, you know, deepening her realizations, now she's in hospice, you know, with cancer. You know, we don't know how much longer she has, but she's got realizations about life. I mean, she's got clarity, fearless. You know, just total. You know, just like the way that I see it is, we get to, through bhakti yoga, we get to see people achieve the very goal of yoga, where, you know, they conquer the mind, right? They overcome the influence of the mind. They untap, they connect with the true nature of the soul, which is eternal, full of knowledge and truth, and full of bliss. That they connect with it, and so I'm really looking forward to having her on, because she's just this person that just, right now, you know, she's speaking in many different forums, you know, online, and each time she's just got such clear, you know, deep spiritual consciousness just shining through. So that'll be at our regular time at 8 a.m. Like, no, that'll be late. That'll be 12.
12 noon.
That'll be 12. Yeah, that'll be 12 noon on Sunday.
That is, you know, you call her an unsung hero, but truthfully, everybody's been telling me, you've got to get this lady on the show.
Yeah. So
she's becoming very sung. Sometimes, like, the most influential things we do are this later end of our life. Of course, you know, we have the example of our guru's guru, Srila Prabhupada. The biggest things he did in his life, so to speak, was the blossoming of the whole movement of bhakti around the world.
Yeah.
And at the end of his life, you know. It's amazing. Like, here she is, practically on her deathbed, going into hospice, and she's like, everybody's talking about her.
Yeah.
And it gives you one of these, I call it like a dropped pin of like, oh, that's where I'm supposed to be going. That's where my consciousness should be. That's where my thought. It's the Bhagavatam. It's the whole Bhagavatam. That's where we should be. What do we talk about? What do we think about? What do we speak about? What do we hear?
It's like a modern day Maj Prickett, right? You know, it's challenging. You know, cancer is such a common form of disease that so many people die from, and people struggle with it, and they talk about, and I say this with sympathy, people going through denial, people going through anger, people going through all these different stages. And here's a person, because they've been preparing their consciousness by daily, regularly, hearing spiritual truth through Srimad Bhagavatam, through Bhagavad Gita, daily, meditating on Maha Mantra, and so, and then they just move right into it with happy, clear, prepared, able. They're real modern day yogis,
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's where we're supposed to be going with this.
Yeah.
Otherwise, where do we go with all this yoga stuff? Like, where do we go with it? I had perfect alignment when I died. No. Okay. I thought you'd laugh at that, Kaustubha.
Wow, I've been laughing
Mara
about
gave
someone
me,
dying.
Mara gave me complete poker face. She was just like, no, nothing. All right, okay. All right. Let's dive into this. Bob Healy's with me. Okay. Now to evoke the mystical mantras. Narayanam namaskritya naram shaiva narotamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the personality of Godhead, Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshvavadreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati utamashloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service to the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Speaking of Bob Healy, who's here with me right now, he's giving a great online workshop, Yoga Nidra and the Koshas, a journey through the 5 bodies of health with Bob Healy. That's for Patreon members. That's Sunday, August 30th at 2 p.m. And then also today we have yoga with Silas. Everyone loves Silas. And Saturday there is a special with Luke Carmen is giving a special dented can yoga repair with Luke Carmen.
Can yoga repair.
Dented can. I love these people. Okay, let's continue. Where are we? Canto 2, Chapter 2, Text 6.
Text 6.
Thus being fixed, one must render service unto the super soul situated in one's heart by his omnipotence, by one's own, situated in one's own heart by his omnipotency. There we go.
The super soul's omnipotency.
What's that?
The super soul's omnipotency.
Yes, not my own omnipotency. Because he is the almighty personality of Godhead, eternal and unlimited. He is the ultimate goal of life, and by worshiping him, one can end the cause of the conditioned state of existence. Very interesting.
Yeah. So we're hearing about different levels of meditation. This is the opening stuff that Shukadeva Goswami is sharing with the King Maharaj Parikar, who's about to die. First, he described that one can meditate on the universal form if perceiving or conceiving of God as a person is difficult for one. Then they can look at this universe and see it as the form of a divine person and meditate on that. And then he briefly mentioned that, don't live simple, right? We don't need a bed if we can lie down on the ground. We don't need a pillow if we can use our arms. The river's supplying our water, and there's caves to live in. And it's a message of live simply so that you can.
Such a great verse. So
you can meditate.
Important verse you read yesterday.
Yeah, you were meditating on it yesterday.
I reread it again. I was meditating all day yesterday, I think because everybody's in transition. Everybody's in transition right now.
COVID?
Okay, what am I going to do with my life? How can I simplify? Yeah, I think there was text scores. Text scores. When
Text 4, yeah.
when there are ample earthly flats to lie on, what is the necessity of cots and beds? When one can use his own arms, what's the necessity of a pillow? When one can use the palms of his hands, what is the necessity of varieties of utensils? When there's ample covering of the skins of trees, what is the necessity of clothing? Are there no torn clothes lying on the common road? Do the trees which exist for maintaining others no longer give alms and charity? Do the rivers being dried up no longer supply water to the thirsty? Are the caves of the mountains now closed? Or, above all, does the Almighty not protect the fully surrendered souls? Why then do the learned sages go to flatter those who are intoxicated by hard-earned wealth? It's always a criticism of hard-earned wealth.
So it's being said, hey, let's just live simply. Let's not pursue, let's fine, take care of the necessities, but let's not eagerly go out and pursue material things in this world as if that's where happiness is going to come from. Yeah. Rather, we take care of things, we take care of the minimum so that we can focus on our spiritual life. But we don't think that happiness is going to come through anything external. That's something that's going to have to come from within. And that's what this meditation is for. So whereas the previous chapter spoke a lot about meditation on the universal form, if you have trouble of conceiving God as a person, this chapter is going to take it to the next level and go to meditation on the form of Paramatma, the form of God within the heart, the form of Lord Vishnu, that all these great yogic literatures say is situated within the heart of every living being, whether it be human, and when I say heart, I mean it's like within, so within the human, within the animal, within even the plants, wherever there's life, wherever there's birth, growth, reproduction, and ultimately dwindling and death, it means that the soul is there, and wherever there's the soul, there's the Paramatma, the Atma and the Paramatma, the soul and the supreme soul or the super soul. So this chapter, we're going to hear a bit about meditating what that Paramatma looks like and how to meditate on that form.
It's a good point, because especially people growing up our age, we're 54 this year, a lot of times the concept of meditation is impersonal. It's just breathe, still your mind, empty your mind. At best, you're meditating on a flame. You ever get one of those? Just meditate on a flame. Yeah. But the Bhagavad Gita doesn't teach that whatsoever. It has the still your mind, but it's still your mind to bring it somewhere. And the other day we were talking about the universe, the sky, the ocean, the huge universal form, the Virat Rupa of the Lord. And that's a type of meditation. And it's a humbling meditation when you're meditating on mountains, just looking at like the Catskill mountain range or the Atlantic Ocean or the stars at night. It's humbling. It puts you in perspective. But then there's what we're doing now, we're taking it up a notch, and they're going to show sort of levels of meditation. And this is a form of the Lord that is situated in every being. Every being has a form of the Lord in full within. And it's going to describe how to meditate. And I don't know when it happened historically that God got kicked out of meditation and God just became a nebulous, cloud-like being without a face and a form. But the Bhagavatam is here to kick that door down and say, no. You can't take personality out of existence. There's form behind everything. Even the trees have an internal form, and the animals are beings with personality. It's such a great concept that everything has personality, because in our limited concept of reality and trying to be even liberal and open-minded and loving, we say, well, okay, it doesn't matter what color you are, what gender you are, what your sexual preference is. We should learn to give dignity to all people. The yogis extend it. That dignity should be extended to every living being, because God is within every living being. We can't even just say to the humans. According to the Vedas, we're not even human. This is just a rented vehicle that we have for a few days. So it's not only a bigger picture of how to view the world, but it's a bigger picture of how to meditate. And I'm now it's going to take it to this notch of there is a Lord in the heart. The Lord has a form, and this is like insider info. Here's what he looks like. Are you ready?
But before that, there's one more verse, just to make sure that we don't go off course here. Text number 7.
Text 7. Right? Okay. Who else but the gross materialist? Sometimes I feel like a gross materialist. Not just materialist, like a grotesque materialist. Who else but the gross materialist will neglect such transcendental thought and take to the non-permanent names only? Seeing the mass of people fallen in a river of suffering as the consequence of accruing the result of their own work.
So this is the words of a super transcendentalist, again, the naked young Shukadeva Goswami, who is everybody's recognizing. He's definitely deeply spiritually advanced. And
I'm sorry.
And so from his perspective, he's saying, why would anyone neglect spiritual life when we can just see that material life leads to suffering? It's clear as a bell. Why would anyone do that? From his perspective, it's just like, from a materialist perspective, because they just have so little touch with deep spirituality. They're like, why would anyone not pursue material things as the source of happiness? Isn't it clear that this is where happiness comes from? It comes from material things. But for the spiritualists can clearly see, no, it doesn't lead to happiness. It leads to
everything
suffering.
Is the what is that called? Opposite world.
Opposite world. I'm not familiar with that.
In Superman, they call it bizarro world, where everything's opposite. It's bizarro world. Spiritual life is bizarro world.
Or material life is really bizarro world, right?
Well, they are bizarro for each other. That's what's going on.
But one's true and one's false, right? One's real. And
ours is right. That's what we're saying.
Right. That's right.
Theirs is wrong.
Bizarro? Is that what it is? Bizarro
world.
Right.
I drove down here yesterday for 3.5 hours, and I talked to Mara, I talked to Kaustubha, I talked to Tukaram, all my favorites. I talked to Bob Healy. It was great. Me and Mara had me laughing for a while. Me and Kaustubha had a deep conversation on the phone.
Deep conversations
that saved me from falling asleep at the wheel.
Okay. At least there's that.
Text 8. Others conceive of the personality of Godhead residing within the body in the region of the heart. Isn't that interesting that it's in the heart out of all organs? It's like the heart center, the Anahata chakra.
Yeah, well,
the lung.
We'll finish the verse. We can talk a little bit about that. But
others conceive the personality of Godhead residing within the body of the region of the heart and measuring. Check this out. You can even measure God here. 8 inches with 4 hands. So the Lord has 4 hands carrying a lotus, a wheel of a chariot, a conch shell, and a club, respectively.
So sometimes it's said, about the size from the tip of your finger to the tip of your thumb, the forefinger of the thumb, something like that.
So the Lord is in the heart. So this is different than the Atma. This is different than the soul.
Yeah.
The soul is like how do they measure the soul? Like the tip of the tip.
1/10,000th, the tip of the hair.
The size of a hair.
Not the size of the hair, the tip of the hair.
Tip of a hair. Yeah. So you have this tiny, tiny little spark of life. That's you. Then you have this 8-inch version of Lord Vishnu in the heart. This is giving us explicit directions on how to meditate. And it's an interesting thing. If you've ever asked someone, well, how do you meditate or take a meditation class? You got to ask, where did they learn it from? Where did they learn it from? Where did they learn it from? This is where you're supposed to be learning it from. The Bhagavatam teaches it. It's the preeminent teachings of yoga wisdom. That was my new
opening. And so you were mentioning, isn't it interesting that it's in the heart, at least for the human being and for animals with hearts, right? Plants would be a different thing. But, it's said in the Upanishads, it says that this Paramatma, this supreme soul, is situated within the cave of the heart, right? Within the realm of the cave of the heart. And the yogis, they you see, there's this connection. It's something that should be obvious to us. It's obvious to the yogis, but where they see consciousness, they understand that there has to be a source from which that consciousness radiates. And so, for instance, when the yogis look at the sun, right, they think, yeah, the sun is ultimately Lord Vishnu, Lord Narayan, spreading his rays throughout the universe. In a similar way, the Paramatma and the Atma, are situated within the body, and they spread consciousness throughout the body. Otherwise, the body is just dead matter, like any other unconscious, unsentient, rock or whatever else, just kind of pure material element that has no consciousness. It's the presence of the Atma and the Paramatma. They both spread their awareness throughout the entire body. There's a really nice commentary Srila Prabhupada describes that when the blood passes through the area passes through the heart, somehow mystically it gathers energy from the Atma and the Paramatma. And then it spreads that energy as awareness or consciousness throughout the entire body. And so therefore, wherever the blood flows, consciousness flows throughout the body. And so we can see if, consciousness, if someone were to walk up behind Raghunath right now, crawl underneath the desk and just touch his little toe, right?
Yeah.
You would feel it. Even if you didn't see or hear that person, your consciousness has spread throughout your body. So you would be aware someone's touching my toe.
Mm.
But if someone tied a tourniquet around your ankle or your knee really tight and restricted the flow of blood to that area, right, then that area
falls asleep.
It falls, the consciousness, it goes numb, right? The awareness, to one, even to the point where someone could take a pin and stick it straight into your toe and you wouldn't even feel it, right? And where we see where the blood doesn't flow, like in the hair or in the nails, there's no consciousness there. You can clip them, you can cut them. There's no pain because there's no awareness there. So just like the sun in the universe spreads its rays, the Atma and the Paramatma, they spread their rays of consciousness. That is the source of consciousness. Consciousness is not a material formula. No scientist can go into a laboratory and create consciousness. They can't. There's no ingredients that they can put together to make a conscious being. They can take consciousness and play with it, but they can't create it. And this is where, Srila Prabhupada kind of coined a phrase, life comes from life. Consciousness only comes from another conscious source.
People would argue with him and say, well, they'll be able to do it in the future. Yeah. Prabhupada called that, I'm not interested in your post-dated checks. They'll be, in the future, they'll be able to create life. Right now they can't, but it's coming.
Right.
Can't create life.
Yeah. So now we're hearing more about that Paramatma and what how you meditate on him.
His mouth expresses his happiness. His eyes spread like the petal of a lotus, and his garments yellowish, like the saffron of a kadamba flower. Yellowish, like a saffron of a kadamba flower, are bedecked with valuable jewels. His ornaments are all made of gold, set with jewels, and he wears glowing headdress and earrings. It's a great meditation.
I love his mouth expresses his happiness. If we were only aware, if we try, like these, real yogis, you can see they're just content. They're happy. They're connected with, if we all realize that we had this smiling, transcendentally happy being within the core of our body like this, and we were connected to that being, we would just let go of all our depression and anxiety.
Be so miserable.
Yeah.
There's a happy little 8-inch man inside me with 4 arms.
Who's very beautiful.
Smiling, very beautiful, wearing a saffron-colored
and all powerful.
A headdress.
Yeah.
He is well decorated with an ornamental wreath.
I think you missed one. Text 10.
Text 10. His lotus feet are placed over the whorls of the lotus-like hearts of the great mystics. On his chest is the Kaustubha jewel, engraved with a beautiful calf.
Yep.
What?
You didn't know that?
I didn't know there's a calf it's in the Kaustubha jewel?
Yeah.
So if you're new to this, Kaustubha is named after the jewel of Lord Vishnu.
And Krishna. They both were, yeah.
Engraved with a beautiful calf. And there are other jewels on his shoulders. His complete torso is garlanded with fresh flowers. He is well decorated with an ornamental wreath about his waist and rings studded with valuable jewels on his fingers. His leglets, his bangles, his oiled hair, curling with a bluish tint, and his beautiful smiling face are all very pleasing. Yoga teachers, you should do this for Yoga Nidra or for Shavasana.
I've done that before, actually.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, there's actually a even more lengthy description in the third canto. And once we did that, Yoga Nidra, and then just meditation on this form of Vishnu.
Nice.
And then meditating on Vishnu in the heart, taking your breath down and then conceiving of God in the heart. It's nice.
Nice way to do Yoga Nidra or leave your body.
Mm-hmm.
The Lord, great class, but we lost 2 people.
We lost a few.
We lost a few, but they were really smiling. They were really happy. The Lord's magnanimous pastimes and the glowing glancing of his smiling face are all indications of his extensive benedictions. One must therefore concentrate on the transcendental form of the Lord as long as the mind can be fixed on him by meditation. So you still have to hold that mind. It's not like you can bring it all over town. You got to hold it. But now the focus is on form instead of nothingness. It's not just to still the mind. It's to bring the mind on a transcendent form.
We've just read 4 verses of description of the Paramatma, and in 3 of the 4 described him as smiling or happy.
Not bitter.
No.
Repulsed. I got to change my facial attitude. I got to smile more. Text 13?
Yeah.
Shall we continue?
Mm-hmm.
The process of meditation should begin. This is more instructions on meditation. The process of meditation should begin from the lotus feet of the Lord and progress to his smiling face. There we go. The meditation should be concentrated upon the lotus feet, then the calves, then the thighs, and in this way, higher and higher. Start with the feet, go up.
Guided meditation.
The more the mind becomes fixed upon the different parts of the limbs, one after another, the more intelligence becomes purified. So true, huh?
Yes. Yeah, maybe after this, we'll read another verse or so, and we can go to a little Bhagavad Gita, and it talks about this. How when the mind is brought to the Paramatma, how it elevates the mind.
Well, I think sometimes, like, if you're new to yoga and you go to a yoga class, the teacher will sometimes say, they'll give some anatomical instruction, and you're like, oh, I never noticed. I never even knew I could do that. Or they'll start to say, breathe deep. Oh, I can breathe deep while I'm here. Or, lift your thigh off your kneecap. Oh, okay, all right. And you start to notice things about your body, and your intelligence becomes more aware of your body. Now I'm thinking of, like, you're describing how to meditate in the Lord and say, yeah, I believe in God. I worship God. Okay, this is what God looks like. Now meditate on his hands. Now meditate on his feet. Now meditate on his calves. It's like you're really starting to have to, when you do this manasa puja, this mental worship, you start to develop a whole, like, inner life of connection that at any minute you could just close your eyes and you could be there. Very interesting. All right. Unless the gross materialist, here I go again, unless the gross materialist develops a sense of loving service to the Supreme Lord, the seer of both the transcendental and material worlds, he should remember or meditate upon the universal form of the Lord at the end of his prescribed duties. So there you have it. Unless you can develop that loving service to this form of the Lord.
Yes. So like you said, he took it up a notch here. So now he's saying, so here's a notch where you meditate on that person, on that Supreme Lord within the heart. If you can't do that, then okay, then meditate on the universe as being the form of this person.
Yeah.
But another notch up would be to meditate on the Paramatma within the heart. And then at the end of this chapter, and the whole next chapter, is going to say, but really, Maharaj Pariksit, really where you want to go with your meditation is on Sri Krishna, on the origin of it all, you know. But why don't we jump, Raghu, a little bit over to the Bhagavad Gita?
Jump! Come on, jump!
I don't even think that's how that song goes.
How's it go?
Is that supposed to be Van Halen?
Yeah, it was Van Halen. Jump.
All right.
I had to do something. Mara was yawning over there. I was reading, and she's just giving me a big morning yawn. I got to do something to get her.
Okay. But, you know, all over Bhagavad Gita, you know, all over the Bhagavad Gita, there's verses about the Paramatma. We can understand by that it's an important topic, you know, and something that we're meant, as yogis, we're meant to be aware of. The 6th chapter is going to describe, you know, the whole elaborate system of Ashtanga yoga, and then it'll say that ultimately it's to find the Paramatma in the heart.
Are you going to the 6th chapter or 13th chapter here?
Well, I'm just mentioning that, but let's read a little from in the 13th chapter, there's a lot about the Paramatma. There's this one very nice verse, 13:23. Okay. Upadrasht. Have you ever memorized this one, 13:23?
I don't think so.
Upadrasht anumantacha. Bharta bhokta maheshvaraha. Paramatmeti chap yukto. Dehi smin purusha paraha. Krishna says,
figure it out. Those are common words.
You want to try to figure it out?
Yeah, but
I mean, upadrashta. Drashta, you know, again, I'm no Sanskrit expert, but I assume that word is related to drista, or to see.
Yeah.
So upadrashta means like not just the seer, but the higher seer.
Upa.
Right?
Upa is upper.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. There's so many connections when you know Sanskrit, you can put it all together, and you become familiar with the philosophy. Like the Yoga Sutras speaks of the drista, right? In the 3rd sutra of the Yoga Sutras, it says, and then the seer abides in their own true nature. When the mind becomes settled, then the drista, there's a seer within the body, then they become situated or they abide in their own true nature. So here, this drasta is mentioned, this drista, but it says the upadrasta. And this is what's commonly, there's the Atma, there's the Paramatma. There's the Ishvara, there's the Paramishvara, right? There's the soul, there's the super soul. And so here it's saying the upadrasta, not just the seer, but the overseer, the higher seer. Upadrasht anumantacha. And the anumanta means the permitter, the one that allows, right? We desire, that's all we can do. But that the Paramatma is the one that facilitates our desire. I want to lift up this pen. I don't know how I do it, right? I desire.
How'd you lift up that pen?
Something's giving me the power to do that. That power could be taken away from me at any moment, you know, but somehow right now it's being, there's some things that I wish I could do, I can't do. And so all the yoga texts are saying it's the Paramatma that is the Anumanta, is the permitter, the overseer, seeing our activities, witnessing what we're going through, but not like, not like you, was it yesterday? You said not like some creepy person, you know, like leering over at us, you know, or whatever, but like, you know, no, that divine witness who understands us, who really understands us, you know. So he's the overseer, the witness, the Anumanta, the permitter, Bharta Bhokta, the supreme enjoyer, Maheshvara, the supreme Lord. Yeah, the supreme Ishvara, right? The Paramatma, the super soul. And he's Dehismin in this body, right? He's the Para Purusha, the transcendental enjoyer. So it's yet in this body, there's another, a transcendental enjoyer. So it was talking about the soul in the previous verses. There's the soul which spreads its consciousness throughout the body. See, because the 13th chapter began with Arjuna saying, tell me about the field and the knower of the field, right? The material body and this material realm that we move through. And then tell me about the knower of that field, which is spiritual, which is a different energy, spiritual energy. And Krishna says, well, there's these 3 topics. There's the material realm, which includes the body and the world that we're moving through. And then there's the soul, which is within the body. If the body is the field, the soul is the knower of the field. And he says, but then there's another knower in there also. right? And that's what we're hearing about here, the Paramatma. There's the Atma, which knows the field. Our consciousness spreads throughout our body. But the Paramatma is conscious not only of our body, but within everybody, conscious within everybody, right? And that Paramatma is the thread that ties everything together, right? Ties it all together. So yet in this body, there's another transcendental enjoyer who is the Lord, the supreme proprietor, who exists as the overseer and the permitter, and who is known as the super soul. And so the 13th chapter is going to try to say that if you can bring your consciousness to be awareness of this Paramatma, it changes everything. You actually begin to see the truth. You know, you see things as they are. The implication being that because we were not totally unaware, we're wandering around in a state of illusion, searching for happiness through material things and never really finding it. What do you think about that, Raghunath?
I think once you start studying the Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita just becomes like very easy to digest. Like after you just read that, I was just like, oh man, this is just, you know, sometimes people really struggle with the Bhagavad Gita. And then the more you read the Bhagavatam, when you were reading that, I was like, this makes so much more sense now than ever before. And I was thinking to newer people, it seems much less of a mountain to climb.
Yeah, I think so. And so then that 13th chapter is going to go on and share so much really valuable information about this. And then the question could be asked, well, how does one achieve this state of consciousness? Right? And then Krishna he describes these four paths of yoga that some people, you know, some people understand the Paramatma through Jnana Yoga. Some people understand the Paramatma through meditation, which is Ashtanga Yoga. Some through by working and giving up the fruits of their work, and some through hearing. He says through hearing, and that's really the indication of bhakti, because you know this Shravanam is so essential to to that most fundamental practice in bhakti. You know, hearing, and simply by hearing, even one may not be a great yogi. Even one may not be a great, you know, with a super controlled mind. Even one may not be a great Jnana yogi, like super renounced. But simply by hearing that it's a practice that needs very little qualification, but gives very powerful results. So this is where the four paths of yoga are mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. He says in text 25 of chapter 13, some perceive the super soul within themselves through meditation. That's the Ashtanga yogi. Others through the cultivation of knowledge. That's the Jnana yogi. And still others through working without fruit of desires. That's the Karma yogi. But then he says, again, there are those who, even if they may not be conversant in the spiritual philosophy, you know, but they begin to worship the Supreme Person upon hearing about him from others. Because of their tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend birth and death. And then the next verses, they describe some great stuff about understanding this Paramatma. Text 27 says, O chief of the Bhartas, know that whatever you see in existence, both the moving and the non-moving, is only a combination of the field of activities and the knower of the field. So if you understand the material energy and the soul within it and the Paramatma and the super soul, then you understand all the basic ingredients of what's happening in this world. You can see things clearly. And he says, text 28, one who sees the super soul accompanying the individual soul in all bodies, and who understands that neither the soul nor the super soul within the destructible body is ever destroyed, actually sees. So when we actually are beginning to see truth, when we understand that there is an imperishable, eternal spark that makes the body come alive, and although the body is temporary, the soul is eternal, and that soul is present within every living being. You're beginning to see the world as it is. You're beginning to step out of the illusion, out of the matrix. You're beginning to be restored to clarity. And then where does that lead? And I really, to me, this verse is super important to me and super inspiring. It's one that my mind always keeps coming back to because I feel it's so important. He says that one who sees the super soul equally present everywhere. in every living being does not degrade himself by his mind. Right? Does not degrade himself by his mind. Thus, he approaches the transcendental destination. And you know, we were talking a little bit yesterday about how we go through challenges in life, right? We might feel mistreated, disrespected. The world is unfair, misunderstood, whatever it might be.
People have hurt us.
People have hurt us, and then we want to fight, you know, to correct that, to convince everybody that we're good and we're not the bad one, and you know, we're the righteous one, and not. But one who understands that the Paramatma is in my heart as the witness, right? At every moment, there's a security, a clarity that comes from that, where I will not degrade my mind. In one sense, not degrade my mind, even in like when we say degrade, you know, I guess there's, and this is again where we get to like how Prabhupada uses language. Degrade can, you know, when we hear the word degraded, I think we think like it means like someone's getting real sleazy or something, right?
I mean, it does mean that too.
It does. So it can mean, yeah,
degrading the mind, getting real sleazy.
Yeah, but it can also just mean you came down a level, right? You went from one grade down to another level. And I think both are.
I use those words a lot. I think they're really practical. We know when we've had degrading conversation, a degrading friendship, a degrading meal, an upgraded meal, or an upgraded conversation, because we feel it.
Yeah, exactly. So in either way that we look at it, whether it's talking about getting sleep, you know, if I just like, you know, it's common that like
getting sleazy,
getting sleazy here on Wisdom of the Sages, but you know, it's common that, you know, people that grow up without a strong positive parental influence in their life, it can lead to crime. It can lead to, you know, more degraded lifestyle, let's say. Right. Easily, you know, because, you know, having that stable influence in one's life kind of keeps one on track.
Sure.
And similarly, but for the yogi, it's the Paramatma within the heart that keeps one on track, keeps one from degrading oneself, whether it's getting sleazy or whether it's the mind needing, you know, like we're saying, like the mind becoming caught up in what we called, what did you call it yesterday? Turbo scenarios, right?
Where you're living through these like revenge scenarios in the mind. Me and you were laughing in the car yesterday about some turbo scenarios.
I tell you, sometimes we just have to laugh at ourselves, right? Because we're so silly. And so, yeah, whether it's needing respect or needing, you know, these things that we don't need, that we think we need, that we spend so much time lost in our mind and trying to change, you know, the external situation. The yogi, they feel that stable influence of the Paramatma within, and their mind doesn't become degraded. Their mind stays elevated. So I'll read this whole verse. Okay. This is Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, text 29. One who sees the super soul, the Paramatma, equally present everywhere in every living being, does not degrade himself by his mind. Thus, he approaches the transcendental destination. This is where yoga gets real. It's opening up that awareness that wherever that these bodies aren't moving around on their own, that there's a spark of spiritual energy that makes them come to life. That's irreducible. That's eternal. And it's that. And there's two sparks, and one is that all-pervasive spark that ties everything together, the Paramatma in the heart of every living being. And when I'm conscious of that beautiful, smiling, happy, transcendental, you know, overseer and permitter and friend within the heart, then my mind stays elevated and I actually become happy, right? Hit it.
Reasonably smooth. Good job, everybody. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Yeah. Thank you for your association and your company that you give me every morning. If you, I had an important announcement and my mind is stiff now. Tomorrow morning, 5 a.m. Thanks for joining us. Hey, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, give us a review. If you're one of the others out there, thanks for telling us your story. Go to Apple Podcasts, write a review, and just tell us your story, how you got here, your journey home, perhaps. your journey into spiritual life. We all want to hear your story. It's great. We're a community-supported podcast, so if you want to support what we're doing, we appreciate it. It's patreon.com/wisdom of the sages. And once you do that, you get all the access to these yoga classes. We've created basically a yoga school online. And for any amount, you can enter into this, and then you get a treasure trunk of goodies where you can take workshops, master classes, yoga classes on a regular basis. Enjoy that whole little Patreon party we have going on. Also want to give a shout out to Plentitude Farm in Puerto Rico. There are a whole bunch of others down there.
Plentitude?
Orders of Wisdom of the Sages. Paramatma was just down there hanging with those guys.
You said Plentitude? Is that what you said?
Plentitude Farm.
All right, cool.
Just give a shout out to them. And now the very time of the show, where we all dance around a computer screen.
You know, and for those patron subscribers, what's happening today?
What's that?
Mara?
Silas is teaching an asana class at 10 a.m. today.
Oh, man, I love Silas. I miss that guy.
Yeah. And today's Bhakta Louie's birthday.
Get out. We didn't even know that.
We didn't know him. We didn't know the super soul within our hearts.
There you go.
Contact Bhakta Louie.
That's
Bhakta
right.
Louie. Happy birthday, Bhakta Louie. Years of service.
And good years. And you know, for patron subscribers also, I posted a talk I gave just the other day.
Oh, yeah.
It's entitled "The Humble Are Elevated and the Proud Get Brought Down."
Man, I've been getting brought down lately. I think I'm proud.
Well, you lift me up, Raghu. You lift me up where I belong.
Up.